Welcome into this weekend's Soccer Best Bets show. Now, the international break has come to an end, and we're rolling into the final stages of the league seasons with title races tightening up in some of the biggest leagues. Now, this week, I'm going to focus these soccer picks on EPL picks, Bundesliga picks, and Serie A picks for this weekend's best soccer predictions and parlays. If you enjoy these short previews, the stats, and the bets, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to get more soccer picks all year long. Let's start off parlay number 1 in Germany. Bayer Leverkusen and Hoffenheim. It's first versus 8th here. Leverkusen, they're still the only team in Europe's top 5 leagues that are undefeated across all competitions, that being 38 games. So why stop backing them here in some form? Hoffenheim may be 8th, but across the last 18 matches in all competitions, they only have 3 wins, just 2 wins in 13, and their last 2 games have been a 3-0 loss to Stuttgart and a 3-1 loss to Frankfurt. On the road, Hoffenheim has only 1 win in 9 games and has allowed multiple goals in each of their past 7. Hoffenheim have given up 50 goals allowed, which is more than 7 teams that are actually below them in the table. It's only better than Bochum's 54 and Darmstadt's 65. Hoffenheim have also given up the second most shots on target in the league as well. Leverkusen won 3-2 on the road back in November when they last played. And last year, Leverkusen won 3-1 and Hoffenheim won 3-0. So there's been lots of goals between these teams. Both of those wins last year were by the road team. 7 of the past 8 meetings between them have seen 3 or more goals. I think you have to look towards a Bayer Leverkusen win, maybe to win by 2 if you were betting it by itself. In a parlay, it's kind of debatable whether you want just Leverkusen to win or Leverkusen to score 2 goals. They have done that, scoring 2 goals in 10 straight games. So for me, let's go Leverkusen over 1.5 to kick off a parlay. Next up, Werder Bremen and Wolfsburg. These teams are separated by just 5 points in the table. Bremen being 10th, Wolfsburg 14th. Neither are in good form though right now. Wolfsburg haven't won a game since way back in December 16th. That's a run of 11 games. They've suffered 3 straight losses by scores of 3-1, 2-0, and 3-2, and they've allowed multiple goals in 4 straight. Despite the lack of wins, they do usually score. Both teams to score has gone a 9-2 in their past 11, but they have been shut out in 2 of their last 3 road games, and they've conceded a goal in 16 of their past 17 on the road, going all the way back to last April. Bremen's good form has quickly tailed off in recent weeks. They've now suffered 3 straight losses. They have just 1 win in 6. They've lost by score lines of 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, and they have a 1-1 draw. So both teams to score has also gone 4-0 in their recent games. There are always goals when these teams meet up. If we look at their historical head-to-head meetings, it was 2-2 in November, and last year was 2-2 and 2-1 for Bremen. The bets on both teams to score in over 2.5 are 5-0 and 6-1 in recent meetings. Both teams to score is 12-2, and there's been at least 2 goals going way back in 22 of the last 23 meetings between them. Given all of that, certainly a bet on both teams to score could be on the table here, but if you just wanted to target Werder Bremen scoring a goal, that could also be a bet in this parlay, which is what I will do. They've scored in 13 straight games, as well as in 12 of 13 recent home games. Bremen to score leg 2, and the third leg of this parlay will be coming from Gladbach and Freiburg. 9th Freiburg versus 12th Gladbach here. There's 5 points between these teams as well. Gladbach won a friendly during the international break, but they had been winless in 4 games. Prior to that, they had 1 win in 10 and 2 wins in 14 before that break. Their recent scorelines, 1-1, 2-1, 3-3, 1-1, 5-2. That was their only win, and 2-0. So certainly plenty of goals in those recent games. Freiburg has also won a friendly in the international break, but they lost 3-2 in the Bundesliga and 5-0 in the Europa League before the break. But they at least are 1-2 in their last 5, so middling form there. Their road games, though, have seen plenty of goals. They've conceded in 5 straight in the Bundesliga, 2-1 win, a 2-1 loss, a 3-0 loss, a 3-1 loss, and a 3-2 loss. So they, too, have lots of goals in their games. If we look at goals per match season long, Gladbach, their games average the second highest, 3.7. Freiburg is tied for 9th. They're still averaging over 3 at 3.2. Over 2.5 bets. Gladbach is 20-6. Freiburg 18-8. Over just 1.5. Gladbach almost every game 23-3. Freiburg 21-5. Now, while last year between these teams both score lines may have been 0-0, this year they drew 3-3 back in November, and with Gladbach giving up 50 goals, which is tied for the 3rd most. Freiburg 48 goals, the 5th most. Certainly, I think we could see goals again. Freiburg could get a push from the announcement that manager Christian Streich will step down after the season. After 12 years in charge, they might choose to rally around that. But then again, they've allowed 22 goals in their past 9 Bundesliga games. I see at least 2 goals one way or another, probably both teams to score, but let's just go over 1.5. We'll get Gladbach, Freiburg over 1.5, Bremen to score, Leverkusen to score at least 2 at minus 115 odds. Parlay number 2, let's stick with just trying to piece together some simple legs to create a parlay here, and it's going to be in the EPL and the Serie A. Tottenham and Luton. Tottenham are fighting for the top 4. They're 5th, just 3 points back of Villa. Lots on the line here for them. Luton are fighting to stay in the EPL. Also lots on the line for them, being 17th. They're just 1 point ahead of 18th place Forest, and they could be jumped by Forest depending on their result with Palace on Saturday. It was a close 1-0 Tottenham win earlier this year, but Luton, despite being a team that they're not winning, but they're always capable of scoring, something they've done in 13 straight games where both teams to score has also gone. 9-0. They have 0 wins, though, in those last 9 games. They've given up 28 goals in those 9 games as well. Tottenham lost 2-0 to Fulham before the break, but they are 4-1-2 in their last 7. That was just the second time they failed to score across all competitions in 31 games this year. That trend should continue here with them getting back on the score sheet. Certainly, Tottenham should likely win. Very likely Luton could score. If you wanted better odds, you could go Tottenham to win, both teams to score. I think I'll just ask Tottenham to score 2 goals to kick off this parlay. Next up, Newcastle and West Ham. That would be the early morning game if you're in Eastern time zone in the EPL. Across several offensive and defensive categories between Newcastle and West Ham, these teams are among some of both the best and the worst. Newcastle have scored the 5th most goals, and they have the 5th highest XG. West Ham have the 9th most goals for. They do have a much lower XG. Despite both being in the top half of the table, though, West Ham has allowed the 7th most goals in the division, and Newcastle has the joint 8th most goals allowed. West Ham's XG is 3rd worst. Newcastle's XG is 6th worst. And when it comes to shots on target, West Ham has given up the 4th most and Newcastle the 6th most. Now, their overall goals per match, these Newcastle games, averaging the most goals in the EPL at 3.8, while West Ham's average 3.3, the 9th most. Newcastle has seen the most games go over 2.5 this season at 21-7 to the over. West Ham's not far behind at 19-10, but in games going just over 1.5, West Ham has also the 2nd most at 27-2, and Newcastle's 23-5. So both of these teams almost always see at least 2 goals in their game. West Ham has only seen 1 game in their past 11 across all competitions, have less than 1 goal. That was a 1-0 loss in the Europa League. Otherwise, they're 3-2-0 in their last 5 EPL games. In all competitions, Newcastle haven't had a game finished with less than 2 goals since December 23rd. And they've scored in every single home game in the EPL this year, but they've also allowed multiple goals in 7 of their past 9 EPL games. Now, when they met in the reverse fixture, it was October, and the last 6 have all seen both teams to score bets hitting with an average of 4.17 goals per game scored in those head-to-head meetings. There's also been at least 2 goals scored in each of their past 16 games, going all the way back to 2014. This looks like a both teams to score, but West Ham are also out one of their top scorers, Mohamed Kudus, with a shoulder injury, and they have actually been shut out in 4 of their last 6 road games, but 4 of those last 6 road games have still seen 2 or more goals. Let's go. You could go both teams to score for this parlay, just over 1.5 works for me. Finally, Fiorentina and AC Milan over in Italy. AC Milan look to maintain 2nd place, while Fiorentina are looking to crack the Europa League spots, being 4 points back of 6th place. Fiorentina is in good form in all competitions. They're undefeated in 6 games. They have just 1 loss in 8, but outside of a 0-0 draw with Torino in that time, they don't have any other clean sheets in their last 12 games. This includes conceding 4 goals to Maccabi Haifa in 2 Conference League games, and also goals to Empoli, Frosinone, Lecce, and Udinese, teams that are obviously much lower ranked than AC Milan. Their last game was postponed, though, as GM Joe Baroni was rushed to hospital prior to the Atalanta game before that break, and he did later pass away. Head coach Vincenzo Italiano is also contemplating departure at the end of the season. So these things could obviously be a distraction this weekend, or could serve as motivation to go on a high. That is tough to say. But they also do have a semifinal in the Coppa Italia coming up on Wednesday, which would be a much bigger match than this to prepare for. Now they get AC Milan, who've won 5 straight games. They've outscored their opponents 12-4 in that time. They've scored in 27 straight games. They have the 2nd most Serie A goals, the 3rd highest XG, and the 3rd most shots on target. Milan will be missing the suspended left back Theo Hernandez through suspension, but will have their scoring threats of Giroud, Rafael Leao, and Christian Pulisic all available. It was 1-0, a tight game for AC Milan earlier this season, but Milan hasn't failed to score versus Fiorentina since way back in 2019, that being a run of 10 games. Let's simply ask Milan to score. They should likely win this game, though. Let's go Milan to score, Tottenham to score at least 2, Newcastle, West Ham over 1.5, coming in at minus 128 odds. Parlay number 3, going back to Germany, Stuttgart and Heidenheim on Sunday. Heidenheim has been a nice surprise this season, but they may be in for a tough trip to play Stuttgart here. Stuttgart are third. They have 56 points, only 4 back of second place Bayern. Heidenheim 11th, 29 points. Heidenheim did get the better of Stuttgart earlier this season in November with a 2-0 home win, but that just means Stuttgart should get their full attention, have their full attention on Heidenheim this time around. Heidenheim have been in a slide since the calendar turned to 2024. They have just 1 win in 10, 0 wins in 5 as well. But despite Heidenheim only having 2 road wins, both have come recently, and they are 2-3-1 in their last 6 on the road. Stuttgart, outside of one 3-2 road loss to Leverkusen in the Pokal, have gone 7-1-0 in their last 8 Bundesliga games heading into the break. And they had beat Hoffenheim 3-0 on the road, Berlin 2-0 at home, and Wolfsburg 3-2 on the road. Stuttgart should get plenty of shots and scoring opportunities here. They have the 4th most shots on target. Heidenheim give up the 7th most shots on target. Surely Stuttgart should win, possibly by 2. Let's go Stuttgart to score over 1.5 goals in this parlay. Now, probably the biggest game in Europe this weekend, Man City and Arsenal. Lots of title implications on the line here in the EPL. This is one of those games where you look at and you assume there's going to be goals as you have 2 top teams fighting for the title. Arsenal first, 64 points. Then we have Liverpool also tied there with 64, and Man City right behind with 63. Arsenal is first in goals for. Man City are third in goals for. But these teams are also some of the top defensive teams as well. They're first and third, respectively, in goals allowed. So which form there do you trust, the offense or the defense? It was just 1-0 Arsenal at the Emirates earlier this season and in the EPL. And Arsenal won in PKs after a 1-1 draw in the Community Shield to start the season. So we've seen 2 close matches between these teams already. Arsenal has had 2 close Champions League games with Porto, a 1-0 loss and a 1-0 PK win. But otherwise, 14 of their past 16 games have seen 2 or more goals. They're 9-0-1, that one loss being the Porto loss, in their last 10, and they have outscored their opponents by an incredible 33-5 in that time. So they're rolling here. Man City are also on a long run of great forms themselves, and this goes back much, much longer, being undefeated in 22 games across all competitions, where they're 19-3-0. They scored in all of those games, and there's been 2 or more goals in 19 of their 22 games. Some key players could possibly be missing. De Bruyne for City, Saka for Arsenal, which is worth checking in on before making these bets. With City being at home, certainly could lean towards Man City to get this win, especially if Saka's out for Arsenal, their top scorer. This also could be a tight game, though, possibly a 1-1 draw. One way or another, though, I'm going to say there will be at least 2 goals for a parlay. Let's go over 1.5. Let's round out the parlay, going to Liverpool and Brighton, also in the EPL. Liverpool are tied in first. They're second. Actually, though, in the table, they have 64 points alongside Arsenal. Brighton, 8th, 42 points. Liverpool are near perfect at home, where they've gone 11-3-0, outscoring their opponents 38-12 in the Premier League. And in fact, they have not lost a home game in any competition since going way back to February 2023 in the Champions League to Real Madrid, that being a run of 31 games. And in those 31 home games in all competitions, Liverpool scored 2 goals 28 times. Brighton are coming off 1-0 wins over Roma and Forest at home. Their last 3 road games were 4-0 loss to Roma, 3-0 loss to Fulham, and a 1-0 loss to Wolves. It was 2-2 in the reverse fixture, and there are usually goals between these teams when they meet up, score lines being 2-1, 3-0, 3-3, 2-0, 2-2. I think Liverpool should get this win. They're the better team. They're at home. I certainly think, just in case Brighton gets some goals as well, let's just go Liverpool over 1.5. And if we go Liverpool over 1.5, Man City, Arsenal over 1.5, Stuttgart over 1.5, get some plus money at plus 112. And we'll do one more parlay, EPL and Serie A, spread out over Saturday and Sunday. The late game in the EPL on Saturday is Brentford and Man U. Man U have been in good form, having won 6 straight in all competitions before falling to a 3-1 defeat away to Man City before the break. That, though, the fact that they scored, though, does extend a streak to 8 straight games where they have scored, and that should continue versus a Brentford team that has allowed the 4th most goals allowed this season. But then Man U, they're rarely consistent, hard team to trust, and they're now adding the likes of Harry Maguire and Casemiro to the list of defensive injuries that is growing. Now, when we look at their road form, they had a good 0-0 draw with Liverpool back in December, though, and that was December 17th. But that is just one of 3 clean sheets they've kept in 12 games when playing on the road. Since that Liverpool game, they've kept They've allowed 2 goals to West Ham, 2 to Forest, 2 to Newport, a lower-ranked team, 3 to Wolves, 1 to Villa, 1 to Luton, and 3 to City on their travels. The only clean sheets they kept on the road coming against Forest and a lower side, Wigan. Now, Brentford are also a lower side. They're just 15th, and they have just 2 wins in their past 17, so it's very hard to expect them to pull an upset here. They've conceded a goal in 20 of their past 21 games. They conceded multiple goals in 4 straight and in 9 of 11. And adding the fact that they've been ravished with defensive injuries, plus adding Sergio Reguilon to suspension, and that trend looks likely to continue here. It's hard to see them keeping a clean sheet. They just never do. But at home at the G-Tech Community Stadium, they've still scored in 8 straight games, and in all competitions at home, they've scored in 14 of 16 this season. Both teams to score have hit in 8 straight of those home games. It's also 13 and 3 in their last 16. Go back to last season, though, and that scoring trend at home is even longer and better. They've scored in 26 of 27 home EPL games. They also got back Brian Mbuba, a forward from injury before the break. Possibly he could start this week alongside Ivan Toney. This looks like a both teams to score, maybe a both teams to score over 2.5, Man U to win, and both teams to score, or simply just both teams to score for this parlay to kick it off with the next 2 legs that I'll be adding. Going to Serie A in Italy, it's Lecce and Roma. These 2 legs look like pretty easy. There's a couple easier looking results here that I want to target. On Sunday, first we have 13th place, Lecce hosting 5th Roma. Lecce have given up the 5th most goals. They have the 4th worst XGA. They got a 1-0 win in their last game, but it was against last place Salernitana. That's just their 3rd win in any competition across their last 25 games, and the first time in any of those games that they've managed to keep a clean sheet. So meeting an informed Roma side looks like trouble. Roma has a 1-0 road loss to Brighton in the Europa League, which they didn't need in a game where they didn't need the win, and a 4-2 home loss to Inter, as their only 2 losses in their last 13 games. And like I said, that Brighton loss is the only time they failed to score in 14 of their last games. Roma won 2-1 in Rome in November. There's been goals usually between these teams when they meet up. Previous score lines, 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, and 4-0. Obviously, we're going back really deep here in the history books, but you have to look all the way back to 2000 to find the last time, 22 games, that Roma hasn't scored against Lecce. Surely I think Roma will win, but I definitely think they'll score for the sake of this parlay. Roma to score. Finally, another one of the easier looking results here. Low-hanging fruit, Inter Milan, Empoli. Another obvious looking bet here. First place Inter hosting Empoli, 17th. Inter have been in good form anywhere this season, but at home they're 12-3-1. They've outscored their opponents 37-8. Empoli are 4-3-7. They've been outscored 23-13 on the road. Empoli did shock Inter though, 1-0 in Milan last season, so they should get Inter's full attention here. Inter won the last 2 games though, 3-0 and 1-0 this season when they played at Empoli. Empoli have lost 3 straight, but all those games were just 1-0. And even though an Inter win looks likely, Empoli have only lost by 2 goals or more twice in their last 19 games, 1 by 2 and 1 by 3, and none of those came in their past 10. So this might not be a rout. Let's just keep it easy. Throw Inter Milan to win on the money line into this parlay. So it's Inter to win, Roma to score, Brentford and Man U, both teams to score, plus 108. All of these parlays, obviously not paying lots and lots of money here, but all very attainable. Let's roll with those 4 parlays, 12 games this weekend in my soccer picks. Now, what are your favorite bets across all of the European leagues this week? Be sure to drop your picks, your upsets, your parlays into the comments, and good luck with all of your bets this weekend.